In the meantime, just a few reminders before we officially begin. We are recording and live streaming this. So if you have other team members that need to watch later today and you don't want to wait for our recap email, you can go onto the SaaStr YouTube channel, and it is literally live streaming right now. So the recording is there instantly, which is pretty nice. So that's just a reminder there. We will also send out, the formal slides in our weekly recap, as well as some of the docs that you guys will see today in today's webinar. Last but not least, before we officially start, as always, if you have any questions, drop them into the Q&A as we go. You can also put them into the chat. Cool, I just linked the webinar link for everyone. Yeah, awesome. So there are 2 of us here. We'll try and, again, answer as many questions as possible. They do not have to be about what you see on the slides. So if you have specific questions, let us know in the chat. We'll try and hit them all. And if not, we will definitely respond afterwards. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Here. Ta-da! Half the time I get that right. All right. Welcome, everyone. Again, a few reminders and some new info. We'll try and, keep this to about 30 minutes or so we can answer as many questions as possible, because I know there were a lot of them last week. Just as a reminder, we are at the San Mateo County Event Center for the returning sponsors. That will be again this year for the 3rd year in a row. We really like this venue and center. Some people affectionately call it the San Mateo County Fairgrounds. It's where they hold the fair. It is massive, 40 acres. So if you're a new sponsor, it is quite a big venue. It is easy to get to. So we'll talk about booking travel, but if you are booking, about 20, 25 minutes or so from SFO, kind of 40 minutes or so to get to SF City proper. If you've got customer meetings, again, it's another 20 minutes or 30 to San Jose. So it's kind of in the middle, which is cool. If you do have customer meetings or customers that are going to be coming to SaaStr Annual in the Bay Area, since the Bay Area is coming back. We will be at the event center. There are multiple entrances, which we'll chat more about. And as always, if you guys need anything, email sponsorsuccess@saastrinc.com. We will help route your question to our appropriate team members. Like we say every week, this is monitored by several people on the SaaStr team, including our on-site team. So really good to email that so that everyone can see it and get you to the right place and get you what you need. It is September 6th through 8th. So the only thing I'll say about that is there are kind of different days of the week this year. So, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday kind of mix. So Friday should be a fun time for those who are at SaaStr Annual. It's the official start of the weekend at 4 o'clock. So we're definitely going to have a beer garden and make it a party on site on Friday. So it'll be a fun time. We're super excited. It's, the first week of September. Historically, weather has been pretty good. But it's also just a dice roll on weather, which we'll talk about a little bit. Okay, real quick on travel. I want to hit this as an early reminder. If you have not already, book your team's travel, book your team's hotel. These hotels have been known to sell out each year because a lot of attendees fly in to SaaStr Annual. It's definitely a rideshare, a commuter, and an international event. So a lot of people coming from all over. Definitely make sure as a sponsor, you book your hotels because attendees also have access to these links. So the sooner you book your hotels, the better. Higher probability you can put your team at the same hotel. We do have these links to these courtesy blocks that we sent out last week in our recap. We'll send them again in these slides. Again, highly recommend you book those now. Obviously, this is not inclusive of all hotels in the area. So there are definitely other hotels in San Mateo and surrounding areas that are also great to book. These are just the ones where we have our attendee and sponsor blocks. Of note too, at the Crown Plaza, that is where our main shuttle stop runs to and from. So that was a super convenient location. That one does sell out first. So if you're I want the most convenient option, Crown Plaza is the most convenient because we have the shuttle going there. It's about 10 minutes away from the venue. The shuttle runs about every 15 minutes. Super handy and easy to get to. Can't recommend that one enough, but it does sell out first. So again, I do know they're already, getting a little bit full on there. So Be sure, check your dates. We're working with them literally today on seeing if we can open up more rooms. I just saw the note in the chat. Yeah, we're seeing if we can open up more rooms there because it is filling super, super fast. It does depend on your dates that you guys have put in for the block. So again, that one's already almost full. The other ones, good ones to try next. And there are other ones in the area as well. Just these are the ones that are that we have the blocks at. So again, book your travels, really important to do that ASAP because it does fill between sponsors and all the attendees that come in. It's a lot of people. Bear that in mind. We talked about the agenda in thorough last week. So we'll just do a few important reminders here. Load-in officially starts for sponsors on Tuesday, September 5th. That is the day after Labor Day. So just again, something to keep in mind as you're planning your team's travel. We do have a longer day this day than in previous years, just to accommodate for people maybe coming in later because of Labor Day or airport delays because of Labor Day. So it does go from 2 p.m. all the way to 8 p.m. We don't usually, need that long of a block, but we just decided just in case there's travel and like any delays to make it easier for sponsors, you have the whole afternoon into the evening. There'll be badge pickup the entire time. There is about a 2-hour block from 2 to 4 where it's sponsor badge pickup only, meaning attendees will not be able to pick up their badges yet, just sponsors. So that's a great way to come. There'll be no lines. You could just get your badges. One reminder there, everybody on your team does need to pick up their own badge since we do temperature and ID checks. So just, Amelia cannot go pick up Poya's. Amelia needs to pick up Amelia's and Poya needs to pick up Poya's. So just a reminder there. That is true for days. So again, that's why we're encouraging everyone to start registering their teams on Ticket. And so you can plan, and if you need more, that you can request them from us to accommodate that. I know a lot of people shift, etc., and so forth. So there is that. Satellite registration will open this day as well. So for some reason, you've got some team members who maybe don't go or need to go to load-in and don't need to go directly to the venue. There is some at Crown Plaza. Again, there are other nearby hotels as well. So if you just want to go to Crown Plaza to pick up your badge, you can do that too, or you can just come to the venue. It's not far from everything else in San Mateo. Wednesday, it is a full day. There is some time in the morning for sponsors to do sponsor load-in. What we mean by load-in, just as a reminder, all your booths are turnkey, so they'll be ready for you. This is really just testing your booth loop, working through your lead scanners, working through your swag, making sure you've got all your deliveries, and basically setting up for the day, doing any preps, running through pitches, etc. So there's nothing like physically for you guys to do. It's really just setting up your space to be yours. So biggest thing on the first official day, sponsor hall will officially open at 10, load-in starts at 8. So that's Wednesday. These are really full days. So again, I'm just going to go fast here. As reminders, again, sponsor early access on Thursday. You get an hour in the morning before the sponsor hall officially opens. So from 8 to 9, you've got that extra hour to come in before the majority of attendees to refresh your booths. Again, this is anything like I've seen people like roll their swag, do new swag. Some people have activations that are like single day activations, getting their activations plan, maybe changing what's on their monitor, sprucing up the booth. And that's really all there is to do on the next day. And the sponsor hall this day will be open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Similar setup on Friday, you've got that same hour in the morning, 8 to 9, early access, and then sponsor halls are open from 9 to 6. One thing I'll call out on Friday for loadout. Loadout officially starts at 5:30, but you can start earlier. We know sponsors, it's a long 3 days, plus like a day of loaded, plus a lot of travel. Plus, if you've got teammates that need to go back on Friday, instead of staying here for the weekend, you might want to send some teammates home earlier. So loadout officially starts at 5:30. You can load out anytime before that. And what we mean by loadout, once again, it is turnkey. So that would be if you need to ship anything back to where it came from or your office, you would be shipping back those items via Freeman. They can help you get it shipped to where you need to go, or you can, do a swag run and try and give as much of it as way to attendees the last day. But that's really all there is. The booths are turnkey, meaning like, they take them up and put them down. So there's nothing to really take with you from the booth. But it would just be, packing up any additional swag or things you might have accumulated throughout the show days to send back to your offices. We'll just quickly touch on the venue because we're going to be talking about booths. So this is, again, our 3rd year in a row at the San Mateo County Events Center. It is indoor, outdoor, massive festival style event. So there's a mix of things both inside and outside. We took a look at our campus map last week, but as a refresher, there is a bunch that is both inside and outside. We have these two giant sponsor hangars down here that are connected, which are going to have all of our sponsor expo booths. It's going to have our main stages. It's going to have break dates. It's going to have the cantina. It's going to have the co-working space. This is really the hub of SaaStr Annual, or in these two hangars, as we call them. They are these giant buildings. There's a lot of reasons we covered last week of why we're doing it all inside, for foot traffic, weather, all these sorts of reasons you can listen to, or we can fill you in if you missed the memo. But it is still indoor, outdoor. So do keep that in mind. So there is, a lot of spaces that will still be inside and outside. So one thing I cannot stress enough is that make sure you plan for your team to work the booth, but also have time to be an attendee. I think that's where, Poi and I have seen the most success for sponsors, is when they're able to kind of, as we call it, shift their teams, having some people be in the booth on booth duty, and having some people be, as an attendee, experiencing the content, the networking, all these experiences and spaces we just chatted about. It's such a great way to meet different people at SaaStr Annual and connect with folks outside of just as a traditional booth. Obviously, the booths are there for a reason. They are highly trafficked. That's why we put them in certain areas. So definitely you're going to want to make sure you do shift people as well if you have the team numbers to do it, because they can be quite long days, right? It could be, we've heard from folks, like it's a lot of conversations literally throughout the whole day. So if you've got, the same person that has to be on, like even I get tired by the third day of SaaStr Annual. Like it's a lot for any one person to, keep the same level of energy and enthusiasm. So as much as you can, it's really great to, shift your teams, think about having teams in like either blocks of time or by day, like, Tuesday you're on booth duty, Wednesday you can be attendee, Friday you're back in the booth, things like that. People have done kind of different mix and seen more success with. One thing I'll say about the campus as well, it's a massive 40 acres. We do have different ways to get around the campus while you're on campus. So there's like shuttles, which are like these big kind of golf cart trams. There's pedicabs, which are like the bike cabs that you usually see at like fairs or Coachella. But yeah, we do like ways to get around. It is a lot of, walking. You're going to be inside, you're going to be outside, you're going to be on your feet a lot. So do keep that in mind. And the campus is fairly immersive. So one thing I do like to remind sponsors in particular, it's not super close to like shopping centers. Or if you're like, I'm just going to go grab a Starbucks. There is a Starbucks that is about a 5-minute drive, but it's a 5-minute drive, which means like if you walk there, it's probably I don't know, would you say half an hour walk for you and back? Like,
yeah, it takes a little while, but
yeah,
just prepare ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of things just to add. This is a preliminary campus map. I know sometimes people screenshot it and everything. It's gonna change. There's a lot of variables. There's a lot of partners. There's safety. There's fire hazards. Things change. Yeah. So just for not the major things, but there's going to be some revisions. So just keep that in mind. Kim asked a good question, which is, will Freeman allow for early loadout? As much as we love Freeman to allow for that, the last 2 years they have not. So let's assume that is not an option, but we will ask and insist on it. And Ariana asked a great question, which is, will this information exist? So Ariana, yes, we have a deck, we have the recording, and then we do a quick recap, main takeaway. So we'll make sure you're in the email list, or for whatever reason you're not getting that, ping David, who's your account manager, and we'll make sure we either add you to the mailing list or forward it to you. So yeah, keep the questions.
I would say yeah, these are great questions. Boy, great reminders there. I would say on the early loadout thing too, like if you have things that are non high value, let's say like leftover on the third day, right? Like I know some people literally bring really big item giveaways to give away to folks that they physically bring to the venue. And if you've got a few of those left, you probably want to hand carry those honestly back to like a FedEx versus shipping them via Freeman. Freeman is great for doing bulk, right? We love them. They do all of our booths. They do all the shipping, handling, and signage. They do a lot of our at our show, right? So like the more that you can do on like a per person basis, just to gauge, right? Of like, okay, I want these iPads so we can give away back at our office. Like, again, I do recommend like just taking those with you from the venue, you know, hand carry them, take them to a nearby FedEx, ship them back out if you have nothing else left. We'll talk about in the coming weeks too about like, maybe we could hit it here too, Poi, at the end of like how much swag and stuff to order. I do feel like, you know, we are trying to reduce as much waste as possible at our SaaStr events. We did fairly good in Europa, making sure, you know, sponsors didn't have too much excess swag. Obviously, this is a big show, you know, do not plan swag for 12,000 people. Like, there are going to be a lot of people on site, but there are a lot of sponsors, right? And everyone brings swag. So it's just something to keep in mind. I think a trend we saw, and we can again talk about this more next week on like swag and giveaways, but like I think a trend we saw with Europa was like more people doing high level branded items that they would then ship to people as like a way to get them in the booth, and they would do like roll-up banners or like signage or like games that people would play, and then they would ship you your thing later. It's also a nice touch point so that, you know, you have a reason to follow up with that prospect, which is really nice. So yeah, we saw people give away like Pelotons at Europa. We saw people give away like Xboxes, PS5, you know, all these big high value items. It is not big, like giant, amazing coffee machines that they give away. Like, it does not mean you need to take all these items with you. Again, we've seen a recent trend of people kind of putting it on big banners, what they're giving away, maybe doing like smaller items related to it in like smaller quantity, but using it as more of a follow-up as well. I think we've seen that trend a lot. And I think attendees too are starting to feel like, you know, they don't need every piece of swag at the event. So they're also becoming a little bit more selective in what they want to take home and put in their suitcase. Because remember, it's an international event. So, you know, we love shirts, we love swag, but think about it being, you know, sustainable and maybe things that people can use. So like for SaaStr annual in particular, I would say things that are like, you know, indoor, outdoor are always used by folks. They always consume those on site. They really love them. You know, things that people can take back to their families are always used well. Water bottles are great. You know, again, kind of like or last bits of summer items are great. But yeah, just a general reminder on swag there and quantities as it pertains to loadout. Anything else I kind of missed? Because you had some good reminders.
I think you nailed it. No, I think you nailed it. And probably next week we'll do an episode of like, you know, things that almost work every single time we put on annual.
Yeah, that's a great call out. So this is a look at the sponsor hall. As Poya mentioned, if you screenshotted last week's, you'll probably notice this has already changed over last week because we've been at the event center and we've been working with Brew, and we're actually going back today to make further changes and improvements to the overall campus layout and the connected sponsor hall. So these are the hangars, as we affectionately call them. Again, cannot stress enough that we will send you guys the final one, again, near final, as we'll say, with booth selection that starts next week. Why do we call it near final? Like, why do these changes still happen? Just if you guys want, you know, the real nitty gritty FYI, it is because, you know, we do submit these in a few weeks to the fire marshal, and then depending on what they say, things could change, things can move. Sometimes aisles need to get bigger, booths need to get shorter, like, you know, the quantities, they have to take a look at ingress and egress, all these things. And it's also a capacity thing of like, you know, how many people do we want to physically fit in one space at once? And so that's why there are always changes leading up to literally as sometimes the day of. Usually there are minor changes. They're not like, you know, a whole stage went away. So I do want to preface that. They're usually minor changes of like a few booth placements moved. It's never a big change like, okay, a whole stage went away. Those are always set. We always find a way to make those work and make sure that the flow can flow back and forth. So again, the hangars are really huge, really big. There's a lot of great activations in here. We'll cover it more next week. And I do see some great questions related to booths. So I'm going to keep going. So we'll talk about booth specs and we'll hopefully answer some of the questions that just came in on the chat. One thing I want to keep in mind for everyone, this should be something you send to your design and creative team
ASAP.
or ask your ASAP. Yeah, not only ASAP, but also like, I can't stress this enough, the amount of sponsors who like send this to maybe not a designer or somebody who doesn't know AI files or like auto, like CAD or Figma, like one of those big design beefy tools. You do need those to make a booth. It makes it a lot more streamlined because you can basically like, this is basically the information to set up your file and artwork in those platforms and then make everything to spec and to scale. It does get really difficult when you're, you know, not using those things. So cannot stress this enough that this should 100% go to your design team. If you don't have designers, I don't, boys got contacts, we've got contacts. You can ask us, we can point you in the right direction. We cannot design your booth for you though. So just bear that in mind. This does need to go to your design team preferably. And I do know, in terms of things that may slow you down on these deadlines, things like color matching slows it down. Things like, putting text in the wrong places or not keeping in mind the monitors, like that is all called out on the full spec that we'll send to everyone in this week's recap. But again, we do bear those in mind, right? There are monitors in each booth that you have to design around. If you skip your monitor, then you don't have to do that, but most people don't skip their monitor. These files do need to be extremely high res. It just, again, your fonts need to be outlined. If you're using, Adobe Suite, cannot stress that enough. Outline your fonts. Make sure you embed all your links, because sometimes the designer will just do like a quick export and they'll be like, oh, here you go. And we're like, okay, we opened it and there's nothing linked. It's kind of the equivalent of getting like a coloring book and there's no and there's like just the lines but not the colors after you already did it. Like that's kind of the equivalent when you don't do those things. So yeah, make sure you follow all these acceptable file types and support files. It will help streamline the review process. So if there are any issues, it gives us and you more time to make any edits as necessary versus trying to scramble because we got an artwork file that maybe didn't follow these guidelines or didn't suit the needs of the spec. So we will be sending out everyone invitations to the portal in the next week or so. That is where you'll be submitting your graphics. It will go both to Freeman and SaaStr. We do a 2-check system here again to help expedite. Like we check all the files, they check all the files again to help people keep on track. You'll obviously also hear from us if we don't see your files in the box by a certain date. We'll kind of kindly ask you where they might be. So biggest things to note here on artwork and graphic deadlines. The artwork is going to be due on Wednesday, July 26th. So that's the end of the month. You have 4 weeks actually, because July is a really long month. So you have a bit of time to get that turned around. Again, should be plenty of time because they're turnkey. So most of these are like one wall, one panel, which I'll show you guys. Should be fairly a decent amount of time. I know people who have done their booths in literally a day, like it can be done. Things and graphics submitted after July 26th, they will incur late graphic surcharges. So we wanted to call out that 26th date to everyone. Again, I see a lot of questions on like, when are we getting these? We're going to send these in this week's recap. Yeah. You will get the full shebang of, specs, guidelines per level, etc. So you'll get all those. Not to worry. Graphics, yeah. So graphics submitted after Wednesday, July 26th, there is a late fee. There's various late fees per level. We'll share the final kind of like late fee schedules again in that email, just so that you guys have it handy and there are no surprises. Final graphics approval, will be about a week later, so about Tuesday, August 1st. And that is just because, once you send your graphic to us, the sooner the better. We can turn around your proof, get it to you, make sure it looks good, and then you approve it, and then it is ready to go to print. And we're literally going to start printing these. So that is how that process works. Again, super good to keep streamlined. Highly recommend also you have, multiple POCs on this from your team, so that if somebody is out and some response is needed from our team or an edit is needed, always super helpful to be looped in directly with your design team after you submit, of like, hey, we submitted to the folder, here's Toya and Amelia. Amelia's the designer, so you can help with any edits, etc. Does help expedite, but then, we know directly who to go to versus trying to chase you down and then you chase down your designer. Just helps with the timeline a little bit in terms of artwork. Okay, so 2 things I'll show. Hopefully this is not confusing for folks, but I wanted to show the booth specs from last year and this year. Some of them are the same and some of them are different, which we'll call out. So we do a fair amount of returning sponsors, especially on this webinar. And so that's why we wanted to call it out that way. So for my gold sponsors, this will be the same as last year, or if you've got, different levels year over year, the gold booths are the same as they were in 2022. As a reminder, this is a branded back wall with what we call these side returns here. It has a monitor, a lockable cabinet here, and then what we call a front welcome counter with a graphic. And so this is what I mean by like, once you send these specs to your designer, they're going to design this front counter here. They're going to design this back wall as like 3 panels, so 1 back and 2 sides, and that is it. Like, that is the extent of it. I know it takes a little bit more thought than that, but to simplify, that is what is going to be needed if you have a gold booth. We do not do the monitors. Just a disclaimer to all sponsors at all levels, all these monitors have an HDMI cable. You will plug into them. Important you bring a dongle or some sort of device. I know a lot of people like to use Fire Sticks now, or Apple TVs, just to directly plug into the HDMI port of the monitor and then play whatever you're going to play. Some people do like kind of commercials that they make. Some people do what we call booth loops that has like information, kind of shows like a recorded demo, etc. Shows off customers. Whatever it is, you're responsible for the content on your monitor directly, not us. So again, the only things you're submitting by this 26th of July deadline are, the back panels and then this front counter. So again, for my goals, these are the same as they were last year. These are the specs. Again, we'll send you more detailed specs, which is like, where the monitor is, how the meters, side panel, back panel, front cabinet. But it does, have carpet underneath it. It does have a lockable cabinet in the back. Like I said, it has the monitor. It's got your branded back wall, as we call it. This one has like the 2 arm lights on top of it for extra lighting. And then it does have, stools with it as well, and like a small trash can for things to accumulate throughout the day. And it does have power, right? So like that back cabinet wall has power in it. And we will send to you once we send, we're going to send you guys basically the TLDR, super easy to read booth specs, and then we'll send you the full exhibitor kit in about a week when booth selection starts. So you're going to get it in 2 waves. You'll get one that's just like the actual booth dimensions and specs, and then you'll get a full exhibitor kit. It's like 100 pages. I've seen it. It's fairly dense, but to simplify for folks, we're going to send you the specs first, and then we'll send you the full kit because there is a lot to read in there, including things like you guys were asking of like, how do I order more power? How do I order, Wi-Fi? How do I order different monitor, etc. That is all in the kit. Different furniture, that's all in the kit. Again, it's 100 pages. I know it's really dense, I'm sorry, but it does have everything you need. So that'll come next week so that we don't confuse you. We'll try and cover some of it then too. All right, for my super goals, there's a slight difference in the year over year, and this is actually based on feedback that we heard from our super goals last year. So many of our super goals last year were talking about how they wanted this, like, what we call I call it a pop out, this pop out to go all the way so that they could put their full tagline on it versus just a logo, or so that they could also incorporate it to part of their design. So it looks like a 3D effect as part of their design. We also heard from folks like this part got a little bit clunky. So what we're doing now is 2 main changes to the super goals. If you're new here, then this is what it is. But for all my returners, which are a lot of you on this call, the differences here being now that graphic header now does go all the way across. That was like our #1 requested thing that we had last year from all the super goals. So that means you can either do a full 3D like pop out of whatever your graphic is, so like continue it over. You could put your tagline on it, which I think is super cool, or you could do your logo all the way across, or you could repeat it super big, super bold. I know people really wanted that, so they could do it more billboard style. So that is one big change to the super gold year over year. We also heard from folks that like this kind of section got a little clunky, so we made it what we call affectionately call a waterfall experience. So it goes header, monitor, and then you get this nice built-in long table with more space. I know a lot of you were like, we've got multiple SDRs, team members in a super gold. We need a little bit more counter space. We're in the booth all day. I love this change to the super gold. Not 2 big changes, but I think 2 incredibly efficient changes to the super gold year over year. This front counter can also be branded, which I think is nice so that you don't lose that branding. It also does hide that cabinet and anything you might put under the table so that you do get a little bit more storage. That cabinet does lock. So it is a built-in cabinet on the waterfall table. It locks. Obviously, you've got some stool space there. You've got a little bit of space to put things under the table. So you do get a little bit of extra room that is hidden by the waterfall cabinet. And you get this nice kind of like tabletop area for additional demos, conversations. I know a lot of people last year kind of put their swag or giveaways on there. or games or whatever they were doing. So those are the two big changes to the Super Gold year over year. Again, small but kind of mighty changes to the Super Gold boots. Again, same thing as the gold, right? You guys get a monitor, you get the arm light. There's a few more arm lights here, a few more stools, a bit more of a lounge feel, but again, more streamlined than the other than the ones last year. So I really love these changes to the Super Gold spec. Moving on to the platinum so that we can hit all the booths. The platinums are a little bit different year over year as well. You can see we took some of the same streamlined changes from the Super Gold and did it over to the platinum as well. So one thing you'll see as well, you know, the platinums really love because they're more of a lounge feel. The platinums are arrangeable, and I say that because basically all of our platinums last year had an activation. And so some people were like, okay, we don't need like, you know, this big of a lounge area. We're going to put our activation in the booth. You do have a second monitor, which is really great for your activation. I know a lot of people like tied their second monitor to whatever their activation was that they put into the booth. It's got a more executive feeling. So I really love the platinums for that. It's got that same nice, you know, waterfall experience to make it a little bit more streamlined and give you guys a bit more space. So that if you do bring in an activation, which I know most of you do, you're able to still move around and play around with this furniture and have space for, you know, additional activations, roll-up signage, etc. So really love our platinums. They have such a good lounge feel on site, especially because, you know, there are big rows of sponsor booths. It's really nice to have this lounge space and really space for activation right within your booth. So that is the biggest change on the platinums as well. Again, very similar to last year's, just a little bit more streamlined in terms of how we're using the space. 2 monitors, really great on the platinum. Again, if you're platinum, you're like, I really only want one giant monitor. Or last year, we actually had folks do like 3 monitors and they like tied them all together. That is something you can work through with us. Just again, email sponsor requests with, you know, through your design first, and then we can help with monitors, etc. Okay, Platinum Plus is actually staying the same. So for my Platinum Plus sponsors, this is literally the same year over year. So no changes on this one. We decided that this one was so good, and we got I think last year was the first time we did Platinum Plus, or like the way we did it now. Like we just changed it for last year. We actually got really good feedback on that one, so we decided to keep it the same year over year. People really love this one because, you know, you've got that extra demo kiosk, which people really like. It's got that back bookshelf, which is really great for storage and swag that you can like display. You know, you do get an extra like TV cabinet, again, for like extra giveaways. It has, you know, this extra long counter. Again, I know people really love the Platinum Plus last year, so we kept it the same because it changed already last year from 2021. And so this one we kept the same. People really love this one. So this one will not look any different for folks because that one, I must say we nailed it. All right, diamonds. There is a big change here, so I'm going to go through this one last. As you guys know, with being now inside versus outside, last year we're a bit height restricted on all of our booths. And so we heighted for our diamonds. We could give this one a little bit more height than it did last year. So this one, I'm not going to say it's my favorite, but maybe it's my favorite because you get what I call the Great Wall of Branding in the middle. This is a double-sided wall in the middle. It's 12 feet. It's huge, so you will get that nice height. So as people are walking through the hangars, like people will definitely see your booth because it'll be at a higher sight line than the rest of the booth. Really love this for a diamond. Again, we love this big, giant Great Wall of branding. You get the monitors on each side. You get the waterfall cabinets, which are branded on each side. And you also get these amazing, like, 4 additional touch points on each corner. So you've got the 2 kind of like welcome counters, and you've got the 2 demo kiosks, which are double-sided. I love this one because we know our diamonds do bring a lot of folks to the event. I know folks were like looking for kind of like a wow moment. So we do love these giant tall walls that we can now do only because we're inside. That is a added plus of moving inside. We can do more fun things like this. Giant walls. I can't wait to see what these designs come in as. I think these diamonds are really fun. There are a lot of, you know, cabinets. So if you're bringing in an activation, those are easily removable or changeable to do an activation in them. You know, they do play more to the diamond shape, which I love. So, you know, this year they are more accessible too from each point of entry of the side of your booth. So I love that as well. You can get attendees from all corners and traffic. The placements of the diamonds are really great. So yeah, not to say that diamonds are Amelia's best friend, but I do love the really tall ones. But I do also love, the super golds with like the big headers and the platinum with the lounges. So again, any booth you have, let's be frank, it's gonna be great. There's a lot of great branding. There's a lot of great real estate. It is a lot on what you do with these turnkey specs to bring it to life, and power it with activations. What else on this, Hoya, or any of the levels?
I would say if you want to remove things, just let us know ahead of time. As long as we have a heads up, we can always remove things. If you guys want something in addition to the general Wi-Fi for whatever reason, order that ahead of time. I think the general Wi-Fi works, but some of you love to do personal demos and other things. So that's one additional thing. And then I think everybody knows this, but we do the setup. So when you show up, your booths for the most part are going to be ready. They're going to look great. All you have to do is just the final touches. So it's fairly turnkey and low effort. And again, if you need temp staffers, designers, between our team, we're more than happy to connect you to folks. So just let us know.
There's a great question in the chat on which one is Super Gold Plus. So I flipped back to the Super Gold. The biggest distinction on Super Gold versus Super Gold Plus is that it has an extra 5 feet of depth. So I know that seems confusing on when these drawings are not to scale. But it has an extra 5 foot of depth to accommodate an activation. So this is really for folks that, are either getting an activation through SaaStr or bringing one in. We know folks who've brought in like logo walls, bigger roll-ups, additional signage, et cetera, that they brought. That extra depth gives you the space to do that. As you can see on a normal Super Gold, it is fairly tight. There's not a whole lot of room for an activation here. People have done it, but it does mean things like, ripping out this tabletop smart counter. You lose space for your team to kind of sit and meander. So that is the biggest difference on the Super Gold and the Super Gold Plus. Great question. So the booth is physically the same. Your footprint is longer though. So you do get more depth again to accommodate activations, extra signage, extra team members, etc. So one thing to bear in mind there. So cool. Yeah, sorry, Pam, good question. The imagery in the spec diagram look different for Super Gold, and that is because for reference purposes for returning sponsors, let me go back. We put last year's Super Gold as the imagery, and then we put this year's Super Gold as the spec diagram. When we send them, we'll send them to you with this year's rendering so you guys see them. We just know that today, literally, I think about most of you are on here, like 80% of you, just looking through the list, are returning sponsors. So we just wanted to call out what the changes were year over year. So that's why you'll see the differences there. We'll send you these webinar slides as is, so you can kind of, flip back and forth. I do think it helps for context for your designers year over year. But for all my new folks, on the spec, you'll just be going off those. And then we'll also send everyone the new renders. We just wanted to share and call out some of the changes year over year. Okay, 2 last things we want to hit before we run out of time, because I know people have been asking this. So 2 more things, and then we'll answer any final questions. One, on shipping, I know this was a question we got last week. So these are the shipping instructions. Again, you'll get this when we send out the recap this week. Don't hold us to right after this webinar because we're going back to San Mateo, but we'll send it, this week. Okay, so biggest thing to note is advanced warehouse shipping receiving starts on Friday, August 4th. What that means is like as you're putting together your flag to ship, it can get there Friday, August 4th to 3 minutes advance warehouse. The deadline there for the 4th all the way through August. That's super important. Sometimes I do know our sponsors get confused on like shipping to the warehouse versus shipping to the site. Which one is better? Shipping to the warehouse is better. Let me just tell you guys the best rule of thumb and practice is to ship directly to their advanced warehouse. It is right in South San Francisco. It is like 10 minutes. The show site. It's really easy for them to truck it. They pallet it, put it all together, bring it to SaaStr with everything they're bringing for us. Really great, really smooth. Highly recommend you ship to the advanced warehouse. Also important, like as you know it, that you put your sponsor name. If you have your booth number, put your number in the label, on the label, in your boxes. year after year, we do get random boxes that we try and decipher whose is whose. Obviously, if it's your swag and it's got your logo on it, we can suss out it's yours and drop it off at your booth. If it looks random, then, we kind of wait for someone to be like, hey, I randomly shipped all this tea to SaaStr. Then we're like, oh, it's yours. So yeah, put your booth number, or at the very least your company name, into each individual box. Like if you are getting it from a third-party swag vendor, most people can actually do that and accommodate it, especially if they're shipping directly to Freeman. Most people can do that. They can label it accordingly. So it says, again, at the very least, it needs your company name on it, so that we know where it's going. The show site shipping, again, only do this, I would say, in case of emergency, if like your swag had a delay, if your swag is late, if something got produced last minute, then send it directly to the show site. This will go directly to the San Mateo County Event Center. Again, highly recommend though, you send it to the warehouse. It's a lot easier. It gets there a lot smoother. Sending it to the show site means like it's coming last minute, right? It is literally coming the day before the show begins. There's a lot going on that day. They're going to drop it. You may not get it during your load in. You might get it the morning of like the Wednesday load in. So again, don't recommend this. We have it as like a last resort. Definitely ship just to the warehouse. Other things people have done, and I'll just call these out, right? Other people have sent their things to like local offices, like a UPS, a FedEx, whatever. You guys can do that. When they bring it to the show site, though, Freeman does need to handle it because it is a strict union labor, like health and safety policy. So just bear that in mind if you're shipping it elsewhere nearby, or if you're shipping it to your hotel. Also check with the hotel before you ship it there. We've had a couple sponsors in recent years just like ship it to the Crown Plaza, and then they were like, we've got pallets of stuff we don't know what to do with. So it's very disruptive to their workflow. But yeah, again, ship to the warehouse, and then the last resort, ship to the show site. But again, ship to the warehouse, much easier. All right, the labels are there. Again, we'll send this all out. I see a lot of questions all about like sponsor portal. The sponsor portal will come. We've been sending these weekly recaps. Again, that sponsor portal is going to come with almost too much information because it has that full 100-page exhibitor kit. It's where you're going to submit everything. It's got all this on there. It doesn't have though all this SaaStr information. So you are going to want to keep these slides as we keep sending them week over week. If you need access to them, we do share them out. That's not a problem. Last thing I wanted to call out here, and then we'll answer any last questions. Customer passes. Oh, this is actually one of the questions related. Customer passes, we've been getting a lot of questions about this because we did this last year. And for my new folks, you're probably like, what do you mean by customer passes? So starting last year, because it was the 10-year anniversary of SaaStr, we started doing what we call customer nomination passes. And so, Poi, I'll let you take it from here because you explained it better than I do.
No, look, I think when you go to events, right, there's a lot of different benefits. There's top of funnel where you get to meet people that have never met with you. You get to showcase your product. But SaaStr's at a point where we have some brand equity and people love to attend the event, and we have a high bar, and people usually like to, be a part of it. So why not allow our wonderful sponsors and partners to bring some of your prospects, bring some of your customers, and influence and drive some deals forward. So this is, I think, a huge value add. It costs us a lot of money. There's hard costs because we feed people, we provide drinks. So we want you to take advantage of it. We just have to do it in a standardized process because it's a lot of heavy lifting in the back end. So any sponsor has the option to nominate up to 10 individuals. To ensure that there is a diverse set of companies represented at SaaStr, we just ask no more than 2 people per company, at least from your perspective. If you can nominate all 10 by August 1st, you would be doing us a huge favor. But at the latest, the absolute drop dead date is August 15, because shortly after that, we just go into production mode, start loading in. I can share a sample spreadsheet, but basically all you have to do is duplicate it. Once all your nominations are in there, just share it with your AE or sponsor success, and within a couple of days, we will ticket them. Our big 3 asks are whoever you nominate, please make sure they meet our demographics, meaning they're a CEO, another executive, founder, at the very minimum, a director or above person at respectable company. We cannot ticket folks that are SDRs, AEs, interns. Sometimes people nominate their parents, nothing against them. It's just doesn't meet our demographics. And then one other thing, just to remain consistent across the board, we do ask all investors to buy their tickets. So if they're a VC, a private equity, debt financing, they just have to purchase their own conference pass. So we're bringing this program back. Let's make it a huge success. There are literally sponsors last year that got 4x their investments by taking advantage of this and influencing deals at SaaStr. So please, please, please take advantage of this. If you want us to lean in, if you want us to give us an account list, I'm willing to do this for some of you where I invite them on your behalf because it's a value add and it's a win-win for everybody. The other question Alonzo asked is, hey, sometimes we need extra tickets for internal team members. That's a separate thing. Just let us know. If we can, we'll hook you up. If we can't, if we're past our threshold, we'll at the very least offer discounted tickets. So.
Okay. Great recap. I think biggest thing on this is, it is up to 10 individuals. Sometimes we're able to accommodate more, but the biggest thing is if you do want to do this, email sponsorship fest today. Depending on how many people want to do this, give us a day or two to process all these, because basically what we will do is we will send out to you, a recap of these rules, regulations, and then your own spreadsheet to put your customer nominations into. Do you invite all 10 nominations? So Justice has a question here related. Do you invite all 10 nominations, or how do you select who to invite? So great question. So how this works in technicality, right? You're going to get a spreadsheet from Sponsor Success when you request it. I imagine we'll get a bunch of requests after this webinar. It's fine. Again, give us a day or two. We will make you a spreadsheet. What you will want to do is put your 10 people on there that you've confirmed want to go to SaaStr. This is not like, okay, I'm going to put my 10 people on here and then SaaStr is going to invite them. These are 10 people you have invited. They want to come to SaaStr. They want to come. You put them on the sheet. We ticket them. How that works is like if they already have a ticket, we will tell you like, hey, this person already had a ticket. Poya already had a ticket. You can swap Poya for a different person because Poya already had a ticket. We don't refund Poya. We just open that slot back up. So that's why there is a bit of a review process. It also helps us, make sure that you guys meet all these guidelines. We'll flag to you directly on your spreadsheet if somebody does not meet these guidelines, for instance. And then we ticket them from there. What you will do on your individual spreadsheet is you will tag, we will see obviously your updates. You'll email Sponsor Success and tag us when you're done filling out your spreadsheet of like, hey, I've got my 10 people in who want to come to SaaStr. Please review and ticket them, as you see fit. We'll do that. We'll review. We'll confirm with you of like, hey, your 10 people did not have tickets yet. They're all ticketed, ready to go. Or, 2 of them had tickets. So you've got 8 ticketed, 2 more left if you want to swap your nominations. So that's how that works. It is a best practice for you to, work with your sales and your marketing teams to invite folks. We do not share past attendee lists or even this year's attendee list. So again, on the thing of like, if you invite somebody duplicate, that just means we'll open up that slot back to your nominations after you submit to us. For things like your internal teams, if you need more tickets, or your speakers again are separate to this. This is just strictly customer or prospect passes. Basically, they get general attendee tickets. Anybody who's working your booth, anybody who's coming for your activation, any of your team members, or if you're outsourcing team members to come help you staff your booth, any of your speakers, if you have a speaking slot, those need to be used with your sponsor codes that you would have received from us. So I'm going to flip to that. So again, use your code that you have gotten for us for all those people. If you're starting to reach your cap, again, just something to email us and reach out to us too, so we can help you work to get them ticketed. With all that being said, last few reminders here. Just going to drop them here in our last minutes because I know it's been 50 minutes. So thank you for doing that and joining. Again, 40 acres, massive campus. I know we talk about this every week, but please do register your teams. It also helps, like if you register your teams and you're unsure, we do see all the registrations individually. So if you're like, oh, we see that you registered your customer, we'll swap that for a customer pass. Or if you, become unsure, or Poya's got 5 tickets, we'll be like, Poya needs 1 ticket, and then 4 other people need 4 other tickets for all of that. So again, register your team. Daniela asked if there's a registration deadline for each of your codes. There's not a strict deadline. However, we do ask that everyone is registered by August 15th so that we can do, again, final checks, make sure sure, and we do export that list to our security team as well. Again, somebody is asking any chance to get more team tickets. That is something to email sponsor success to see what your individual allotment is. Some of them are different based on packages. So email, I'm sorry, you're anonymous, so I can't tell you yours. So email us and we can work with you through that once you hit your cap. I will say, sometimes people are like, oh, I know I'm going to hit my cap. And like, can you increase it now? We generally will not do that until you hit your cap, because sometimes we find people don't actually hit their cap. So we will do that, we'll work with you with that once you actually hit your cap. So if you actually hit your cap, then let's work through that. But I would say most people do not have their caps hit yet. All right, prepared flag activation for shipping, which we went over. Again, booth selection starts next week, so we'll talk about it on next week's webinar, as well as flag and just like general best practices. Booth specs will be sent in this week's email. Again, we are going back to San Mateo again today. We've been there a lot lately, so give us tomorrow, Monday, to send you guys this recap. You will get the recap though. In the meantime, again, the recording is on the live stream. Just go to SaaStr YouTube, go to the live tab. It's already on there. And booth graphics will be due Wednesday, July 25th. Okay, and now we'll do final question. Sorry, I breezed through that. I know there's other questions coming.
Here, I'll go through them really quick. One is in regards to brain date. We usually launch it a couple of weeks before the event, so I would say sometime in the in August probably, and once we're done with booth graphics and whatnot. Just to ask if we have a production team that's coming in and out, maybe they're just helping out with load in, maybe it's a team that's external, a contractor, whatnot, they would have to use one of your tickets because otherwise they would not be able to access loaded. But if you need us, that's a reasonable way or request to increase your allocation or whatever by 1 or 2, just so you don't get penalized. AV furniture, electrical deadlines.
That's all coming with the kit. So again, most of those deadlines are the same as the booth graphics, which is, end of July. Some of them are a bit further out of a lot of them can mainly accommodate ads for things like electrical. That's pretty easy to accommodate an ad because they're not going to install it until they're loaded. Things like AV, a little bit harder because, there's a lot of quantities and sponsors. And so they're going to want to make sure they have the right AV installed. So sooner is better on that. So that'll all come in the kit. Again, most of those deadlines, we just kept it the same as the booth graphics deadlines to keep it simple. Lead scanner licenses, that is a great question. So for my new folks, those are included with your sponsorship. The way it works is most levels have one lead license that works on 10 devices. We'll do a whole deep dive on this in the coming weeks on our sponsor webinar. You use your own device to scan. And we'll go through the nuances of how you can set up questions, how you can tag one as Poya versus Amelia in the same license. There's really not a whole lot to do on lead licenses yet. After all the booth graphics are due, we will need your point of contacts for the lead license scanners, but not before that, so we can try and keep all the deadlines simple. But yeah, that will come after that. And then you can work through with us if you need things like additional licenses or devices.
I don't think it's ever been
most
needed.
People don't.
Yeah. But it's usually one of those things we frankly do 10 days before the event, just point of contacts changes and whatnot. Sometimes you don't know who's going on site, but 9 out of 10 times, even if you do it literally the day before the event, it gets the job done. So it's fairly streamlined. We've been using the same app.
There's nobody scan right now, right? So how it does work though is you just, it'll allow you to scan the QR codes on all the badges. We recently went to front and back design so that you can scan people more easy. But yeah, nothing to really do yet because there's no one to scan yet on site. So there's another question here on if we are bringing in custom items, do you need to use Freeman labor to set it up? Yes, you do. The rates will be in the kit, so keep that all in mind. That Freeman will bill you directly. You'll also need to ship it to them if you're bringing in custom items, just so that they've got eyes on it and they can see what it is. Also, if it needs any sort of base or anything, they can work through that with you. But yeah, that is a great question there. All right, another question. You guys can keep asking questions. We've got 4 more minutes.
It's real time, Crystal.
I know. When the event is over, I'll just. Yeah, when the event is over, how quickly will we be able to download the scans from the lead scanners? So yeah, the point it isn't real time. So literally as somebody scans, it takes 30 seconds to a minute. It'll come up in your lead scanner. Well, it comes up in your lead scanner right away. And then if you export it, so whoever the POC is, the main POC can export it they'll get a download with all those scans in real time. I will say, again, we'll cover this in upcoming weeks as best practices. Always good to know what you're going to do with these leaves before you get on site, right? Like, so that you can program your qualification questions, that you know who to send them to, and who you know what you want to do for follow-up in terms of like on-site follow-up and then post-event follow-up. That does really help. Cannot stress that enough. That's always good to do so that you know what you're doing with these prospects, and like your sales team knows exactly where you met them, what you guys chatted about, and maybe what the next action items are for like, your sales team, product team, etc. There's another question here on lead scanning. Is it the same app that we use for Europa? So yes, for all my Europa sponsors or annual SaaStr sponsors, it is the same app. There is a way to name your devices so you can know who scanned who. We'll go over that for our annual sponsors. There is a way to do that. Yeah. Any other last questions?
Good to know. I learned something new. I did not know that was possible.
Yeah, there is a way to do it. It's not super hard. It's a little hidden. So we're going to go over it with everyone for annual. A few folks did actually do it for your all right, if there are no other questions, again, as final reminders, thank you all for joining. Would love to see you guys next week as we do these week after week. I know it is a lot of information. It is a long webinar, but as you can see, hopefully it's super helpful to your sponsorship to help make the most out of it. We do share updates and major updates, as you can see on these webinars. I do feel like it's helpful more to chat voice with all of you. And you can see our faces and we can explain what everything needs versus like just getting the email. So again, hopefully this has been super helpful. If you do want to have a one-off call on your sponsorship, just let our sponsor success or your AE team know so we can set that up and go through any like technical questions you might have that it pertains specifically to you. But again, major updates will be covered on this webinar first before we roll it out on the email. That's why you'll see that cadence like last week, this week. Again, we're trying to roll out the major updates on these webinars each week so that we can explain it and you have a little bit more context versus trying to decipher it just on an email, which I know is sometimes very hard because there's a lot of great info. So I know some folks have been asking like to get a recap from these. Again, there's a lot of great info from them. So we have been trying in our emails to do a brief recap. But I know like I know they're long, but again, kind of there's new information and the latest and greatest here so that we can explain it all and hopefully make it a little bit easier for you guys as you're planning through everything annual. With all that being said, hope you guys will join us again next Thursday. Again, all these recaps and things will be coming out to you guys this week. The webinars are live on SaaStr's YouTube channel immediately, so right now. And with that, email sponsorsuccess@saastr.com with any other questions, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.